بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. Inshallah, our hadith today is about the ruling on building a masjid at the place of graves, qabr. عن عائشة رضي الله عنها قالت لما اشتكى النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. She said when the Prophet ﷺ was on his deathbed, when he was dying, and he was in pain and complaining, ذكر بعض نسائه كنيسة رأتها بأرض الحبشة يقال لها ماريا. So she said, one of his wives mentioned a church that she saw in Abyssinia, in Habasha. The church is called Mary. وكانت أم سلمة وأم حبيبة أتتا أرض الحبشة. سلمة and Habiba, they immigrated to Abyssinia, to Habasha, before they came to Medina, before they married the Prophet ﷺ. فذكرتا من حسنها وتصاوير فيها. So the Salama and Habiba, they mentioned the beauty of the. If you're blocking anyone, please remove your car.
No, tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
Tomorrow is Salah is 5 o'clock, inshallah. The beauty of the church, they mentioned the beauty of the church and the images, the sculptures, the statues inside the church. So they mentioned this to the Prophet ﷺ while he was dying. فَرَفَعَ رَأْسَهُ. He lifted his head. وقال, and he said, أولئك إذا مات فيهم الرجل الصالح بنوا على قبره مسجدا. He said, those people, when a pious person amongst them dies, they will build a place of worship over the grave, over his grave. So he said, those people, when a righteous person, a religious person dies, they will build a place of worship over his grave. ثم صوروا. Then they will make images, they will make statues, they will make pictures. ثم صوروا فيه تلك الصور, and they will put on the wall over the grave. أولئك شر الخلق عند الله. Those are the most evil people in the sight of Allah. So he said they are the worst creatures that Allah created. So the lesson we learn from this, تحريم البناء على القبور وأنه من التشبه بالمشركين ومن وسائل الشرك. That it is haram to build masajid or any building, any museum, any tombstone, anything on the grave. It is haram to build any building, not only a place of worship, but anything, any structure, bina. So it is haram to build any structure on a grave. And if we do it, then it is imitating the mushrikeen, the idol worshippers. And it leads to shirk. These are things that will lead to people committing idol worshipping. And secondly, تحريم التصوير لذي الروح. From this hadith we learn it is haram to make pictures of a living person, a living thing. Anything that has a spirit, that has a soul, cannot be. We cannot draw their pictures, their images. We cannot carve a sculpture. Anything that has ruh in it, then it's haram to make images or pictures. لا سيما أهل الصلاح الذي يخشى من صورهم الفتنة. Especially people who are righteous, religious, pious. We should not have their pictures, drawing their pictures or their images or their statue in any way or form. فيه دليل على تحريم مثل هذا على المنع من التصوير والصور. So this hadith shows that it's haram to have pictures, drawing pictures, or to become an artist drawing pictures. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he mentioned that the worst people on the day of judgment, who will get the worst, the severest punishment, are al-musawwirun, those who make pictures. And the ulama, they differed about photographical picture. So is it included in this hadith? Some ulama, they said we should avoid it as much as you can. Other ulama, they said photography is not drawing picture, because you're just capturing the image. So animals, anything that has ruh, that has spirit, we cannot make pictures of them. أن من عمل هذا فهو من شر خلق الله. Anyone who does this, making pictures, building structures on the graves, he is the most evil creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So there is a severe punishment for those people who draw images. فيه كمال النصح نصح النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم إذ لم يصرف عن الموعد ما يقاسيه من الألم. So this hadith shows that Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, how sincere, how much he will advise his ummah. Even though he was on deathbed, he was dying, he was in pain, he was suffering, but he lifted his head to advise his ummah. He was on his last breath, but it did not stop him from advising his ummah. Another similar hadith عن عائشة قالت قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم في مرضه الذي لم يقم منه. Aisha, she said, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said in his sickness, the sickness that he never got up from it, on his deathbed, he said لعن الله اليهود والنصارى اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم مساجد. May Allah curse the Jews and the Christians, Nasara. Why? Not because they are Christians, but because of their action. He said, اتخذوا قبور أنبيائهم. They made the grave of their prophet and messengers a place of worship. Masajid, a place of worship. قالت ولولا ذلك لأبرز قبره غير أنه خشي أن يتخذ مسجدا. So she said, because of this, the Prophet ﷺ, his qabr, his grave, is in his house. Otherwise, like anybody else, they will have taken his grave and put it outside, like in the cemetery. But because of the fear that people will take his grave as a place of worship, the Sahaba, they buried him in his bedroom where he died. So many Muslims, they think the Prophet ﷺ, his qabr, his grave is in the masjid. So we have to remember that Nabi ﷺ, his masjid was built in his lifetime, while he was alive, when he arrived in Medina. And his houses, they were separate from the masjid. They shared a wall. So the houses were on the other side of the wall. So in hadith he mentioned that when a prophet dies, his burial is in the same place where he died. So Sahaba, they didn't know the hadith, they disagreed. Then Abu Bakr came, he informed them. He said, I heard the Messenger of Allah saying that when a Nabi dies, you bury him there. You don't take him out. So they removed the bed and they dug the grave and they placed him, they buried him there. So later on, 90 something years later, the masjid was expanded. So Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, during his reign, they expanded the masjid and they demolished the rooms, Hujuratul Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. They demolished it to expand the masjid from all sides. So Umar, Abu Bakr, all of them, they expanded the masjid, but they did not expand from the houses of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So when Al-Walid bin Abdul Malik, he said, we need to expand the masjid. People are growing, the population are becoming bigger and bigger. So he expanded the masjid, and the rooms of the Prophet ﷺ, they were demolished. And the people of Medina, they protested, they told him don't do this, and they were crying, the women were crying, the men were crying, everybody, but he did not listen. The ulama, Sa'id bin al-Musayyib, and many scholars, they tried to stop. They say what you're doing is wrong. He didn't listen. He was the Khalifa, he did it anyway. So the scholars, they said, we will build a triangle wall around the grave. So any direction you come, any direction you want to face, you can't face. So there are walls, layers of walls which are triangles from all angles, triangles. So now the rooms of the Prophet ﷺ, part of the masjid. That's how it happened. So we cannot use that as an excuse. So the ulama, they said, if a masjid is built on a grave and there's a grave inside the masjid, then the masjid has to be knocked down, it has to be demolished. Or if the masjid was there, the grave was built afterwards, the grave has to be removed and the salah will not be accepted. Any salah you pray in a masjid where there is a grave, the salah will not be accepted. Some ulama, they said, if the grave is not to the direction of the Qibla, then maybe you can pray. If the grave is not, people are not facing the grave, because Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "La tusallu ila al-qubur wa la tajlisu alayha." But the grave has to be removed. So the lesson we learn from this, an-nahyu والتحريم الشديد من اتخاذ القبور مساجدا وقصد الصلاة عندها. That it is strongly prohibited, it's haram completely to build masajid, a place of worship near the graveyard, over the graves. And intentionally praying there is haram. Why? لأن ذلك ذريعة إلى تعظيم الميت والطواف بقبره والتمسح بأركانه والنداء باسمه وهذه بدعة عظيمة. So if we have a grave near inside the masjid, that will lead to glorifying, magnifying the deceased, the person who died, making tawaf around the grave, wiping yourself on the pillars, on the wall of the grave, calling the person in the grave, وَالنِّدَاءُ بِإِسْمِهِ. And this is what's happening in our time. If you go to any Muslim country, any Muslim community, you will find people doing this, making tawaf around a grave, calling the person who's inside, the sheikh or the saint or the awliya, or taking the soil, doing all of these things. So this is shirk, is a major shirk, and many Muslims they are afflicted with this. وهذه بدعة عظيمة عمت الدنيا وعبد الناس القبور وعظموها بالمشاهد والقباب. So he said this is a bid'ah, an innovation that has spread to every corner, every place in the Muslim countries. People have worshipped the graves. They have magnified and glorified the graves. They have built domes and tombstones and museums to glorify the graves. وَزَادُوا عَلَى فِعْلِ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ فَأَسْرَجُوهَا. And they even went beyond and more than the practice of Jahiliyyah. They have lights, they have candles and light, and وَجَعَلُوا لَهَا نَصِيبًا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. They donate portion of their wealth to the grave. So the people who are minding the grave, they receive wealth and money. And this is, subhanAllah, is so strange that a Muslim will do this. كما قال تعالى ويجعلون لما لا يعلمون نصيبا مما رزقناهم. Allah said they make some of their wealth, a portion of their wealth, to the idols, what they worship. But alhamdulillah, the grave of the Prophet ﷺ, until now, people have not worshipped. It has been protected by the rulers of Medina throughout history. The governors of Medina throughout the Muslim history, they had strong aqidah. They had their belief was in line with the belief of Sahaba, and they protected the grave of the Prophet ﷺ. That's why until today, if you go, there are guards, security guard protecting. If no one is there, the people, they will take everything. They will take the wall, they will wipe their clothes on the wall of the grave. They don't know the wall that we have now, it was built by the Turkish, the Ottoman Empire. So if you go to Medina, you will find there's a qubba, green qubba on the grave. That was built by the Ottoman Empire 300 years ago, or 200 years. The wall and the metals that's in front of the grave, it was built by a few years back, few centuries. And now people will come from all corners of the world. They want to touch it. They think it's a holy place. They think it's something that you get benefit. So they will remove their jacket, their clothes, and they want to touch it. They want to wipe themselves. So there has to be people, the security guard tell them, move, don't stand there. You just say assalamu alaikum, you move. Subhanallah. Even the Kaaba, the cloth on the Kaaba is folded. You cannot reach it with your hand. The reason why they do is people, they will take it, they will cut it, they will take it back home. They think it's a holy thing. They think it's muqaddas, that it will benefit them. So subhanallah, the belief system within the Muslim community has been corrupted. إن هذا من فعل اليهود والنصارى فمن فعله فقد اقتفى أثرهم وترك سنة النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. So the worship of graveyards, making pictures, sculptures, statues, images, and building tombstone, the gravestone or structures around the grave, all this is the practice of the Jews and the Christians. Any Muslim who does this, then he is imitating and following the footprint. He is following them. أن الصلاة عند القبر سواء كانت بمسجد أو بغير مسجد من وسائل الشرك الأكبر. The prayer in a graveyard, in a cemetery, whether there is a masjid or not, is a means that it will lead to shirk al-akbar, the greater shirk. So the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said the whole earth is a place of worship except the graveyard and the toilets area. So these two places you cannot pray salah, even when there is no masjid. So if there is masjid or there is no masjid, you cannot pray in a cemetery, in a graveyard. And finally, أن الله سبحانه وتعالى صان نبيه عن أن يعمل الشرك عنده. So the Prophet, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He protected His Prophet. Throughout history, Allah protected and preserved the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and there is no shirk. Never shirk was committed near his grave. فَأَلْهَمَ أَصْحَابَهُ وَمَنْ بَعْدَهُمْ أَنْ يَصُونُوهُ. So Allah inspired the companions and the people who came after them, the rulers, to protect the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Because some of the Muslim sects, some of the groups, if they were the rulers of Medina, they would have made the grave of the Prophet a place of worship. But throughout history, even when the Muslims were fighting each other, the rulers of Medina, they were of the correct aqidah and belief, and they always safeguarded the grave of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. أن هذا من وصاياه الأخيرة التي أعدها لآخر أيامه لتحفظ. So this was the final wasiyah, the final advice the Prophet ﷺ gave his ummah, and he delayed it all the way to his last breath, so his ummah can memorize and can pay heed and listen to his advice. This was his last comment, last advice that he gave to his ummah. Jazakallah khair, barakallah. If you have any questions.
How would the people take flower in the graveyard and put in there?
Yeah.
Putting the flower, they take flower, I saw.
Yes.
Can you do that?
So this is one of the innovations that people do in our time. They sprinkle water, they put flowers, they plant branches or grass over the grave. All this is not allowed. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he never did this. He told his companion to level the grave, level it to the ground. So in Medina, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, أيكم ينطلق إلى المدينة فلا يدع فيها صورة إلا. He told them to remove images. He told them to level the ground. So if you go to Muslim graveyard now, people are doing all kinds of things. Yeah.
Brother, you know, in a place called Tanta in Egypt, yeah?
Yeah.
You know Sayyid Badawi?
Yeah.
They've got a grave inside the
Yeah.
mosque.
Yeah.
And Sayyid al-Hussein,
Yeah.
also they've got one. Sayyid
Yeah.
Zainab, also they've got one. So what can you do? You never told us what the solution.
You cannot do anything because if you try to change, they will kill you,
Oh,
and they have the support of the government, so you can do nothing. But if you know your relatives, your family who are going there to Sayyid Badawi making dua, you advise them. But you cannot, as a Muslim, you cannot take the law into your hand because you do more damage than good.
Regarding the photos,
Yeah.
is it allowed to have one for the passport and the ID and all that?
Yeah. Some
Obviously, we
many
have
ulama,
to-
they said photographical image is not taswir that the Prophet ﷺ prohibited because you're taking and you're capturing the image.
Right.
So, but you should not put them on the wall.
So you're
You
telling
should-
me you never taken any photos of your kids when they were young? You never-
No. The ulama, they said photographical image is allowed
Right.
because it is not taswir.
Okay.
Taswir is you drawing or you carving.
I see. Okay.
This one is like if you look at water, for example, you see your image there, your picture in the water, and you capture it. That's photographical image. Or if you look in your eye, you can see the image of the person in your eye. So the photographical memory is not taswir.
Mm.
But you should not put them on the wall, on the, you shouldn't have them on the wall. But for other than that, you can have them. Yeah. No.
الناس يكتبوا الآن يعني مثلا هذا خبر المرحوم كذا.
So the writing on the wall, the principle is there should be no writing, no name, nothing, unless you want to come back for your loved one many years later, you want to make dua for them, you want to know their location, or you don't want people to walk over their grave, so you put some, identification, that's okay. But the original Sahaba and the Prophet ﷺ, they never put their pictures. If you go to Medina, you have the cemetery of Baqi', the Shuhada Uhud. There's no name. Hamza's name is not there. Uthman is not there. They're buried there. And there's nothing on their grave. But because we live here, sometimes you want to come back after some time to make dua for them. So if you have a number or small thing, to identify them, it should be okay.
How about all the countries we've been to, for example, Egypt,
Yeah,
when the ruler killed, for example, Mubarak, for example,
yeah,
his picture was in every single office in Egypt.
yeah.
Is that allowed or not allowed?
No, it's not.
Exactly.
It's not.
Okay. So that,
Yeah.
It's like Aga Khan.
Yeah.
Aga Khan, you go to all Egypt.
Not in Egypt, in all Arab countries.
Oh, it's,
Quran, with branches in the grave.
Yeah. So that one, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was walking and he passed by two graves, and he said, these two men, they are being worshipped, they have been tortured, punished for something that is not a major sin. One of them, he did not clean himself after using toilet. One of them, he was spreading gossip. So he cut branch and he planted.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
Now, can we use that hadith and apply? The ulama, they say no, because the Prophet ﷺ, he was told that these two men have been worshipped. He was told by angel Jibril. So he had knowledge of the unseen. So if you say, oh, I have a knowledge of unseen, I will. So it's not good for your loved one because you are assuming they are going through punishment. They are going through adab. So you shouldn't have that assumption. And then, we don't know the unseen. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he was informed. But for us, we don't know. So the Sahaba, they didn't do this. They didn't follow the Prophet. When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he planted those branches, there are many Sahaba with him. And he was talking to them. إن هذان لا يعذبان وما يعذبان بكبير. He was talking to them, but they didn't follow that hadith and apply it because you don't have knowledge, you don't know what he's going through. So we shouldn't follow that.
Some people, if you ask them regarding the grave, they will bring the ayah from Surah Al-Kahf, لا تتخذن عليهم مسجدا.
Yeah, Allah mentioned this to condemn them, not to praise them, because they were fighting over the grave, and then some of the group, they say لا نتخذن عليهم مسجدا. So this is not like approving. Allah is not approving this. He is telling us what happened. Yeah, so it's not like this is what they did. Allah is just, it's a quotation.
Did they build masjid on Al-Kahf?
Yeah, they built masjid.
And that was wrong.
Yeah, it's wrong.
المسجد للصلاة يعني مثلا الآن عاملين مساجد يصلوا فيها
نعم.
الناس المتأخرين مثلا الناس ما صلوا مسجد يعني في المقبرة لكن separate.
The like in the Riyadh al-Salam in East London, the cemetery is only for the Muslims. So outside the cemetery there is a masjid, musalla. Yeah, that one is not in the qabr. So people, because they travel, you drive 2 hours to go there, and 2 hours coming back. So they have musalla, they have wudu area, they have. That one is not in the grave, in the cemetery. Yeah, that's yeah.
في السعودية رأيت المسجد ابن عباس فيها وسط المسجد.
قبر ابن عباس.
والله ابن عباس.
في مسجد. ما قبر ابن عباس في مسجد.
اسمه المسجد اسم ابن عباس.
والقبر في الداخل.
ايوه.
ما أعرف.
Sheikh, sorry, I want to ask one thing. You
Yeah.
know about the Jummah.
Yeah.
Now there is a leaflet going on saying don't go to Jummah because this
Yeah.
is,
If you feel like you have cough or flu, you should stay home. If you are vulnerable, like
general, because there is I just saw a mobile is coming up from.
yeah, it's not yet, but if it reached that
Muslim
level,
Council.
and they said over 70 people are old.
Less than 200 people.
Yeah.
Still way less than 200 people.